Want to unlock the secrets of real power? Today on Tech HQ AI, we're breaking down 10 powerful laws you can use to master influence, whether it's never outshining the boss or turning enemies into allies. Ready to take control? Let's jump in.
All right, listeners, buckle up. Today we're doing a deep dive into the psychology of power. We got a listener request to unpack some excerpts from the 48 Laws of Power. Now, before anyone starts practicing their evil laugh, let me clarify. This isn't about becoming a master manipulator.
Exactly. This deep dive is about decoding those unspoken rules of power dynamics. How they play out in the real world, giving us all a bit more awareness, even if we don't necessarily agree with every single law.
It's about knowing the rules of the game, right?
Yeah.
Maybe even learning how to bend them a bit to our advantage.
Think of it less about conquering the world and more like understanding the forces at play within it. These principles are timeless. You see them pop up everywhere.
Absolutely. It's not just ancient history and kings and queens, is it?
No, not at all. Take Law 1, for instance. Never outshine the master. Greene uses that dramatic story of Nicholas Fouquet. He tried to win over King Louis XIV, but ended up imprisoned, all because he tried to outshine the king.
Yikes. Talk about a cautionary tale. So I guess knowing your audience is crucial, right? No matter if you're giving a presentation to a CEO or just trying to impress your manager.
Exactly. Now compare that with Galileo. He made these huge astronomical discoveries, but instead of overshadowing the powerful Medici family, he actually made them a part of his success. Named the moons of Jupiter after them. Can you believe that?
Wow, what a brilliant strategy. So it's not just about being brilliant, it's about how you present that brilliance, making those in power feel included, not threatened. That is fascinating. Okay, what about Law 2? Never put too much trust in friends, learn how to use enemies. That feels kind of ruthless, even for like the cutthroat world back then.
Yeah, it does sound a bit harsh when you put it like that, but let's reframe it. Think loyalty. A former enemy who's got something to prove might end up being a more reliable ally than a longtime friend who might, take your loyalty for granted a bit.
Interesting. So you're saying there's a strategic advantage in winning over those who've got to prove themselves?
Absolutely. It's about understanding the motivations behind alliances. This even applies today. Think about it. Who's more likely to go that extra mile? That competitor you brought onto your team, or a colleague who just assumes they're already in your good books?
Wow, yeah. I'm starting to see how these laws, even if some seem a little, intense, they give us some really valuable insight into human behavior. So what about this one? Conceal your intentions. Is that about being some master manipulator?
Not quite. Think of it more like strategic thinking. Revealing your plans too early, that makes you vulnerable. You're basically giving others the chance to undermine you or, even worse, steal your ideas.
So it's about picking your battles carefully, only revealing your hand when it's absolutely necessary.
Exactly. It's about sizing up the situation first, adapting your approach, and then choosing your moments strategically. Like Talleyrand, that French diplomat, navigated multiple regime changes and always came out on top by mastering this very principle.
Wow, he understood that sometimes holding back can be way more powerful than showing all your cards too early. It's like that saying, speak softly but carry a big stick.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Which connects perfectly to Law 5, guarding your reputation.
Yes. Your reputation precedes you, they say. And that is even more critical these days. I mean, one misstep online, it can feel like the whole world's watching, judging.
Exactly. And it spreads so fast, too. Which brings us to our next law. Court attention at all costs. Now, this one feels incredibly relevant today, right? I mean, we live in the age of social media where it's all about likes and followers. What are your thoughts?
Well, it feels like a double-edged sword. Attention can be powerful, but it can also backfire pretty spectacularly. It's about being seen, but for the right reasons, right? You have to be so careful about the image you're putting out there.
100%. And think about it. In the past, your reputation was basically limited to your local community. Now, with the internet, it's global, forever.
Yeah, it's true. It's like that saying, you never get a second chance to make a first impression, but that first impression is amplified online now.
So true. And that's why getting a handle on these laws, even if you don't follow them to the letter, is so important. It's like having a decoder ring for human interaction.
Ooh, I like that. A secret decoder ring. Okay, so let's look at this next one. Law 7, getting others to do the work for you, but always taking the credit. Morally ambiguous, much.
For sure. But there's a big difference between delegation and straight-up exploitation. A good leader knows how to leverage the talents around them to inspire, motivate, to reach that shared goal.
So it's about empowering others, not just using them. Ultimately, a leader is only as strong as their team, right?
Exactly. And that actually takes us nicely to Law 8. Make other people come to you. Use bait if necessary. Before we get any ideas, this isn't about being manipulative in a bad way. It's more about strategy.
So instead of chasing after opportunity, you create the right circumstances to draw those opportunities to you.
Yep. It's about building your value, expertise, network, becoming indispensable. Think of it like building a magnetic field. You naturally draw in the people and the opportunities that align with where you want to go.
That's a cool way to think about it. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. Managing your rep, building your network. What about these last two you sent over? Law 9. Win through your actions, never through argument.
Have you ever noticed how some people just love to argue their point? Even when it's clear they're not going to change anyone's mind.
Oh, all the time. They're so focused on being right, they totally miss the bigger picture.
And it just creates all this tension and conflict. Letting your actions speak louder, that has a different type of power to it. It shows how competent and confident you are without the arguing.
Actions speak louder than words, right?
Yeah,
Anyone can talk a big game, but it's the ones who quietly deliver results that earn respect.
totally agree. Now, this next one is pretty interesting. Infection. Avoid the unhappy and unlucky.
I have to say, when I first read that one, I laughed out loud. A little dramatic, don't you think?
A little bit, yeah. But think about it this way. Energy and mindset. We all know people who just radiate negativity. Always complaining, always looking at the downside of everything.
Oh, God, yes. It's exhausting just being around that kind of energy.
And look, it's important to be there for our friends and colleagues who are going through rough patches. But Greene is saying we need to be mindful about the company we keep, especially when it comes to our own goals and dreams.
So you're saying the people we're surrounded with can really impact our own mindset and outlook.
100%. Negativity spreads like wildfire. If you're always around it, it can be tough to stay positive and driven to reach those goals.
Surround yourself with people who lift you up, not drag you down.
Exactly. So we've explored all 10 laws, and I'm curious, what were your biggest takeaways from this deep dive? What really stuck with you?
You know, first off, I have to say, this has been such a cool conversation. I'm so fascinated by the whole psychology of power, and today has given me a totally fresh perspective. I think the biggest takeaway is self-awareness. You know, it's like you can see beneath the surface now, not to manipulate people, but to just understand where they're coming from.
Exactly. Knowledge is power, right? Not about using it against people, but more about making sure it's not used against you. And that comes from awareness, knowing the game that's being played.
It gives you choices, right? You're not just reacting anymore, you're being strategic. So listeners, think about it. Starting a new job, navigating a tricky negotiation, knowing these laws can give you a serious edge.
And it goes way beyond just the work stuff. Think about personal relationships, social dynamics. Anytime things feel a little, loaded, power dynamics are always at play.
That's so true. Being tuned into that can make all the difference, and we've covered so much ground today. Presenting yourself strategically, building a solid reputation, even surrounding yourself with the right people, dodging those energy vampires.
It's been quite the ride through this whole psychology of power, hasn't it? And for me, it always comes back to self-awareness. Understanding these laws, it's not about becoming some kind of, evil genius. It's about navigating the world with your eyes wide open.
Couldn't have said it better myself. All right, before we go, one last thought to leave you with. We talked about attention, how much it matters in this day and age, but how do you grab that attention ethically without resorting to manipulation or being someone you're not? That's something to think about this week. Maybe while you're prepping for that big presentation, or even just deciding who you're going to grab coffee with. Until next time, stay curious and keep those observation skills sharp.
Which law of power got you thinking? Share your favorite or least favorite from laws 1 to 10 in the comments. Don't forget to follow techhq.ai, and stay tuned for more game-changing strategies.